Live service games as a service has been a fundamental change in how games are designed and supported for months or even years. The very best games can become a license to print money for the developers and transform League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Team Fortress 2, among many others into juggernauts. But when you are thinking about a game as not just a finished product, but a continued project, it's raising issues in terms of what exactly is the consumer getting in the first place. The main point about live service is providing continued development and content for a game well past its launch. This content extends beyond just bug fixes, but adding in new game elements and even brand new gameplay loops. At its best, live service keeps a game in the public eye and retains its value for far longer compared to traditional games. For esports, you absolutely need your game to be live service if you expect it to remain in the competitive space for long. Along those lines, live service games do transform into different products over the months or years of support. You cannot play a game like Team Fortress 2, Payday 2, League of Legends, and more now, and get the same experience as launch day, with having seen titles get a redemption run after having a bad launch, such as Sea of Thieves and No Man's Sky. Having games get better after being released is great, but that still leaves the question about what was going on at launch. The reason for this piece came from reading the review of the Surviving Mars expansion over on Rock Paper Shotgun. When the game was released, it was criticized for not having a lot of depth or content beyond the initial gameplay loop. Over a year later, the expansion Green Planet has been released and it's being praised for the new system added. Like No Man's Sky and Sea of Thieves, it's a case of game being released not at its very best, and it's something we are seeing more of from the indie space. I have been playing more and more games lately from indie developers who within a week to a month of putting a game officially out, release major code and bug fix patches for the game. On one hand, that's a good sign, but we are talking issues that anyone who was looking and playing these games should have caught or commented on during playtesting. Just like the rise of digital distribution, there have been discussions about the quality of games being released, not what they are after months of updates, but how they were on day one. As we talked about, the very best examples of live service take a game that's already great and enhance it. But what about the games that did not start great? From the Rock Paper Shotgun review, there are a few quotes I want to bring up. This is the first one where the warning light went off in my head. It should not be acceptable to get a product with legitimate problems day one, and then expect it to get better over time. While technical issues and weird bugs can be found and fixed after launch, the same cannot be said of having blatant design problems in your title day one. For critics of live service, this point is the biggest one, for their issues with the practice a game should not start out bad and then be patched to be fixed. The hallmark of live service games is the very fact that they are not the same game they were at the start. Many people will argue that consumers should not complain about a game getting fixed because you got to play the game earlier than everyone else. However, it's important to point out that, no, those people did not get to play the game earlier. They were playing a different game. Payday 2, for instance, is fundamentally a different game after no systems like pre-planning were added in. The other point I want to bring up is an even trickier one. What happens when DLC becomes the saving grace of a title? Green Planet for Surviving Mars continues a paradox interactive trend of their live service design. And yes, I know they were only the publishers for the game. The expansion adds in a brand new goal of terraforming Mars, bringing a new system, buildings, and challenges to the game. This challenge provides a sense of finality to a play, and from the review, it's a very big deal. This is not the first time that a Paradox game has received massive work through expansions. Each one of their big hits has had multiple expansions, each one adding in a new game system and radically changing the game. Unlike the titles, playing a Paradox interactive game at launch is a completely different experience than waiting and buying them with the DLC already out. It's often joked by fans that you should wait at least 6 months after release before playing a game from Paradox, as they should have expansions and fixed any launch bugs by then. Surviving Mars by itself is $30 at retail price, with Green Planet costing an additional $20 if you did not get the season pass. For me, I got the complete edition on sale for $19, giving me everything at this moment in time. As with previous Paradox expansions, all new systems, no matter how big or small, are locked to their respective expansions. This creates a very awkward position for newcomers if they buy the game on sale and get a lesser experience unless they spend more money. This is not the same as the Payday 2 example from above, as Overkill always made system-changing updates for it, as to not fragment the PLAYERBASE, and that leaves us with a very sticky question. If a developer releases content that is so pivotal that it corrects problems with the original design, should that content be put behind a paywall? And that takes us to an example of another game that has been argued should not be played without the expansion. XCOM 2 by Firaxis at launch was already a great game. While there have been plenty of arguments, both for and against its redesign of the mission structure, no one could argue that buying the game at launch was not getting a complete experience. As with someone, Firaxis released smaller bits of DLC that added in new missions and elements, but the game could still be enjoyed regardless. When the expansion War of the Chosen came out, however, they went all in with top-to-bottom improvements to the systems, gameplay loop, and brand new elements. There were discussions before launch that the work that went into War of the Chosen could have failed at XCOM 3. The new systems added with the expansion greatly improved the game with content that no one was asking for, but cannot imagine playing XCOM 2 without it now. War of the Chosen, in my opinion, is one of the best expansions for a game released this decade. But that takes us back to the previous section. If this expansion is so fundamental to the experience that anyone who has played the game cannot imagine playing without it, then should not it be free, keeping with what we talked about? In this case, I would argue no, for several reasons. War of the Chosen did not fix problems with XCOM 2, as we talked about. If you wanted to play XCOM 2 without any DLC or expansions, you still had a great game. There is a difference between fixing issues that people have pointed out and giving them original content. As with Enemy Within, the changes to the base game make it harder on top of the new content, and brand new players may still want to play the original game first, just to get their feet wet. When games promote season passes and continued support, it raises excitement and dread about what's to come. Many gamers have felt that season passes are not worth the extra money, and are essentially gambling on an unknown value and the amount of content. I should point out that while I did get the season pass for XCOM 2, War of the Chosen was sold separately. Live service presents a very tough topic for developers, and how much should they continue to support a game? Well, I will be linking to a video decided on the topic. This piece is already too long to delve into that now. Digital distribution is not going anywhere, and we are certainly seeing live servers in multiplayer design. The question remains if more single-player games will go the same route. Theoretically, you could support any game indefinitely as long there are people willing to pay. But that raises one final question for this piece. Should a game be supported forever? If you enjoy my topics on game design, be sure to check out the Game Wisdom Discord. I'm open to everyone. Video Game Deep Kids is a weekly newsletter from video game industry. Watcher Simon Carless, BD.